Hi everyone, welcome back to Nibs, the podcast. I'm your host MILEN1ST and
Paul Antonio, and this is where we discuss
calligraphy, lettering, and sign painting. Hey Paul, it's funny because the first episode we did back in January, and we were super optimistic and everything, but here we are, May the 7th, recording the second episode.
Everything takes longer than you think.
Yeah, actually it does. Probably you heard the first episode last week, and here is the second one. For you it's just a week, but for us is some months between them, as I just said. And we decided that in today's podcast we will be talking about 3 topics. As always, this podcast will be split in 3 parts of 15 minutes, and the topics.
So the topics today we're going to look at. So these topics will obviously be distributed across other podcasts. The topics that we're going to start with today are how to start calligraphy, and the calligraphy masters volunteers, and how to choose tool. So let's get started on how to start calligraphy. So I'm going to ask Milen about how he started calligraphy, because I think it's really important that you get it from his perspective first. And then I will talk a little bit about how I started and how I start my students off on it. So Milen, let's hear how you started calligraphy.
I don't know, like how I started calligraphy is really weird because I don't know. I started just watching videos and then I grabbed some pens. I didn't even have calligraphy tools. I remember I had a marker which was like a neon color, but it was just a highlighter, for text. And because it was a broad tip, I started with something like this, but I don't know how I started. I started the most wrong way you're supposed to start. I didn't follow any rules. I didn't use guidelines. I'm still not using guidelines. Wait, just before you say anything, I can say, like, for the last few months, I'm using more guidelines.
Hope so.
I'm not using them all the time, but I see that there is huge difference when I use them.
Great. That's really wonderful to hear. I think, and for a lot of people, for a lot of beginners, they don't see the sense in using guidelines, because you might be looking at a calligrapher who's been doing calligraphy for 20, 30 years, and we don't need guidelines because we've had so much practice with them. But I still use guidelines in my work because for me, it's about the accuracy of the work. And you've probably come to notice that the more guidelines you use, the more accurate the work becomes.
Yes, and the final piece looks beautiful. Wow, yes. What a surprise. What a surprise. No, I'm just kidding. But I think in general, when you're a beginner and when you start calligraphy, for example, when I started, look, guys, we can do a podcast. Come on, dude. It's okay. It's good to have fun. But what I mean is, I know why I don't use guidelines. When I started, I started because of TS1 with his pilot parallel pen video, and I was hugely influenced by this video. And funny or not, he didn't use guidelines in this video. So in my mind, you're right. As you just mentioned, some people with experience with more years, they can write without guidelines. But I didn't think this back then. I just saw him writing without guidelines, and I was like, okay, so I can do it as well. And this just shows that when you have no knowledge about calligraphy and you jump into it, you can do it the wrong way. Like, I'm doing everything the very wrong way. But for myself, I don't mind because I'm doing it out of passion. And I don't jump just because, okay, I like this now, I want to do it. I want to do it quick and blah, blah, blah. For me, I understand my mistakes now, and I still learn from those mistakes. So I don't think I've lost anything just because I didn't start the.
And that's really funny because when I started, I was 9, and my brother and we would trace typefaces and fill them in, and I still have very vivid memories of how we did that, and we always used our copybooks. So we would never trace on a blank piece of paper. We would always use the copybooks, and we would stay between the lines on the copybook. So even when I was starting off, as a 9-year-old playing with letter forms, I was still quite conscious of the fact that the rigidity of the lines really helped with the accuracy of the lettering. So the first font that I traced was an Old English font, and it was a font.
Wait.
It wasn't. So the first font I traced that really taught me that there was something other than just tracing was a font called Old English. It was in the letter set book. I still have the letter set book. And I was looking at it and I could see that it needed to sit between two lines. So tracing it with the lines really helped me. Then, I'm a little bit obsessive about things. So I wanted to stay between the lines. And then, a couple months later, one of my friends said to me, "Oh, you like writing? I have this pen. I can't get it to work properly." And as soon as I saw it, I knew, oh my gosh, because I'd said to my brother, "But if we were drawing them," and I said, "You could write this." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "If you had a big pen." And I didn't know, I just knew that you needed something bigger than a tip. And I said, and I remember saying to him, if you had a big pen, you could write this. And he was like, "What are you on about?" And then a couple of months later, one of my friends, his mother had bought him a set. He said, "Do you know what this thing is? Calligraphy." I was like, "No, what is that?" He said, "Look, I know you like writing. I've tried it and it's terrible. It's so difficult. So, maybe you will get it to work." And so as soon as he showed it to me, I went, oh, a big pen, a big pen. And so I think my experience of starting was very different to yours. I mean, equally, don't forget, my experience of starting calligraphy was we had no internet.
Yes, but at the same time, you started 9 years old, Paul. I started when I was 23, 24 years old. That's a huge difference. I remember like the first 1-2 years I was into calligraphy, and they were like there's two people like pokers which are younger than me, and in those 7 years I discovered even more younger people, which I'm just like, man, I wish I started earlier, So me starting at 24 and you were like, I wish I started at 9 years old. I'm just, while I listen to your story, I'm like, dude, I don't even remember what I was doing when I was 9, playing with cars and playing football. You were first steps into your calligraphy.
But then,
that's crazy.
I remember Mummy dropping us off at the library, and we were great. She would drop us off at the library, and we would not trouble the librarians unless we wanted something we couldn't reach. And I started looking up calligraphy in encyclopedias, and that was such a magical experience, because I remember, for most of you, you probably never ever picked up an encyclopedia. When you picked up an encyclopedia, at the beginning, it would say, "See also," and it would give you a list of other topics to see. So it had hieroglyphs, runic, Mayan. It had all these words that I had never seen. And so I started having to look through all the encyclopedias. And so when I started calligraphy, I had this really big sort of idea that it wasn't just this. It was all of this. And that sort of led me on to looking at how quills were made. Because of course, we couldn't afford nibs. A nib in Trinidad a nib today is £1.50, £2. So if a nib is £2, and the conversion rate is 10-1, it was 10-1 back then. That's $20, which back then, so a nib back then was £1.50. That's $15, and back then $15 could buy you 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 6 bottles of beer. Because beer's a really good conversion. It's a really good, it's food's quite tricky, but beer. If you could get 6 bottles of beer for the cost of a nib, you were like, oh. So
Can I have 6 beers, please? I have a nib with me.
Yeah, I can stick you with the nib. And so I taught myself to cut quills because, you know, there are tons of turkey vulture feathers on the beach in Trinidad. And so, you know, I taught myself to cut quills because I needed a broad edge. And even in Trinidad, you know, any broad edge marker in Trinidad is so ratty. You couldn't do any writing with it.
But are nibs the same expense as they were back then?
Nibs are more expensive now. You know, they've gone up in price. The metal's gone up in price. You know, there's inflation.
But okay, maybe I should ask: are they more affordable now for people? Of course, they're more expensive, but I don't know the story you say in Trinidad. I don't know what was your way of living. Maybe then was a lot expensive to have. Maybe now it's too expensive.
I mean, they're still expensive because, you know, they have to ship them. So, you know, when you think of the concept of a nib, right? They work brilliantly in developed countries where the shipping is fine and you're not shipping huge distances and there's a larger market. In Trinidad, there weren't a lot of people wanting nibs to do calligraphy. So the demand wasn't there. So by the time they got to Trinidad, the markup they needed on top of them to make them marginally profitable was pretty high. And then, of course, you know, I learned years later, I still have some of the nibs some of my first nibs, you know, they didn't work. But that's just the tests. They test every day. What's the alarm?
Wow, alarm, people. It's calligraphy.
We'll go off soon.
Okay. Just dance.
It's not usually this long. Unless there's actually a fire, right? So the thing about the nibs were they were quite expensive, and because the demand was not there, you know, it meant that by the time they got to Trinidad, they altered slightly. Now all nibs are coated, right? But when you're living in a seasonally humid or a humid country in the tropics, in the West Indies, or, you know, like India or Hong Kong, the nibs corrode really quickly because the salt air causes them to rust.
Wait, I'm just right now. I never even thought about stuff like that's crazy. So if you're in India.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Do you know when I went to India? I was in India, 4 years ago? And William Mitchell and Rodia gave me lots of pads. They gave me a pad for each student, which was great. Thankfully, I didn't have to carry it. They shipped it there for me. William Mitchell gave me gelato nibs to take out. And they were brand new, right? So I was like, oh, all these free nibs for the students. How exciting. And so I said, okay, so this is how you cure the nib. You lick it, don't stick it in a potato because the tips are too fine because they'll get damaged, you know. So we licked the nibs and we're waiting and chatting and a 2-day course, right? By the end of the first day, the students were having problems. So I'm like, oh, what's going on? What's wrong with your hairline? And I took my magnifying glass out and I looked at it and I thought, I've never seen the tip like this. And it's so salty. The air is so salty in Mumbai. The nibs started to corrode because you were dipping it in ink. It would dry a little bit. Then the salt air would interact with the ink and the metal in the nib. So the nibs started to get really scratchy. And I'm like, what is this? And then I started to think, when I first bought nibs in Trinidad, I remember writing with them and they were really nice. And then they started to feel a little bit scratchy and I couldn't understand why. And so years later, I realized it's the salt water and the humidity, because they start to cause the nibs to rust. And you wouldn't think this would happen in like the space of 9 hours, but it does. So understanding how the tools work, you know, we were going to talk about tools in the next segment. Understanding how the tools work is really important. But let's go back to this sort of how to start calligraphy.
How to start calligraphy, and this is something that we will continue talking in the next episode of Nibs podcast, because it's been already 15 minutes. So we're supposed to jump into the second part where we talk about what?
Volunteers.
Oh, volunteers. That's a topic
Very
I
important
love.
topic.
But before this, guys, I just want to let you know, as I explained, there will be 3 segments of 15 minutes, and between each segment there will be 1 minute where either I promote something of myself, either Paul will promote something of himself, or either if there are sponsors, people who want to pay us to promote their products or whatever, feel free to contact us. But keep in mind, we don't get all the sponsors just for the sake of money. We are very, how do you say it, like
open.
We will promote stuff that we believe in and that we recommend for real. We don't want sponsor just for the sake of money. Okay, so let's go into volunteers. I can say that we decided to talk about this topic because some months ago, when Paul convinced me to ask for volunteers, I was very like, no, I cannot ask people.
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of an introduction to this. I have lots of classes on. We have a robust community where what we do is, if you take a class, you get invited to join that group, so you can post work in the group and we can sort of work with you and really help you with the work. That, there's all the social media stuff to do. So I have to come up with the ideas, do the filming, do the posting. We have classes to teach. I have to do the work for the lectures, take the photographs. I then put the dates and the names on them, and then I send them to Telmo, and he puts them into a PDF, and we double check to see how it's going to work on Zoom. And so in that respect, I have Telmo to help me. Once I then have to do the handout. Once I've done the handout, I send it to Telmo, and he puts it into the right format that we've sort of agreed on for our classes. All of this takes time. Now, Calligraphy Masters is a big machine, and it's a big machine, and there's only one cog in the machine.
Engine.
It's not even an engine, it's a cog. There's one cog in the machine, and that's MILEN, right? And so MILEN does everything. He has to come up with the ideas, he has to figure out who to talk to, deal with the filming, deal with the managing, deal with the editing, and that's stuff that I wouldn't even dare to touch. So my videos on YouTube, I just do them and post them because I don't have time for all of that. The videos are there for you to learn. They're not there for you to be, all beautified and pretty. They're there for you to learn. MILEN does something very different to me. So I said to him, I'd been struggling with managing our communities, because we had 6 groups on Facebook, which we're now sort of down to 2, because we've moved to an entirely new setup for our community. And I was really stressed about it. And not only was I stressed about it, the stress was affecting my work. And one of the volunteers in the community sent me a message to say, I see you're really struggling. Do you need help? And I said, yes, I need help. So she managed to get together a list of people in the community who were willing to act as admins and moderators to help with the managing of the community. She then suggested that I ask for volunteers to help with other things. And I thought, oh gosh, asking people for help. I don't really like asking people for help. And I was talking to a friend in the community, Gingy, and she sent me a message, and I messaged her back saying, I don't really want to ask people for help. And she sent me back a long message saying, you have helped thousands of us over the years. She said, and I'm not joking, and she said, you must be in the hundreds of thousands of people who have started calligraphy because of a video you've seen. They follow you, they learn. I post a lot of educational content for free. Lots of people benefit from this. And so I put out a post saying I need some help. And I was a little overwhelmed by the number of people who offered to help. Now, Milen and I have been friends for a long time. He's like my little...
More than
He's
friends.
like my
We're
little
brothers.
brother. And I said to him, listen, you know, you've made a huge contribution to people's lives. And you are doing all of this on your own. You're at the point where you cannot do all of it on your own, and you need help. And so I convinced him to ask for volunteers. Now, the thing about volunteering is, we're not asking you to give up your life to help Milen.
Even though if you can do it, that'd be great. But
what we are asking is for some time. And it might be time to help with posting. It might be time to help with replying to things, because you know there's lots of content on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. People asking questions that you might know answers to, and that Milen mightn't even know an answer to. So you know, like when Milen does a video with me for YouTube, I go back to that video once a month and I look at all the questions and I answer people and that kind of thing. Yes.
For real? What? Man, I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
This is so cool. But I mean, people were supposed to do like this, but now that you say it, I'm like,
but
wow,
it's important that, you know, if
awesome.
somebody, even in my YouTube, if somebody asks me, if somebody says, hi, Paul, I just give them a heart. If somebody says, hi, Paul, I'm trying to do this. If there's a question that needs answering, I will answer it, because that person's taken the time to ask the question. So it's only fair that I take the time to answer the question. But these things take time, and they take time and knowledge. And, you know, we're not just asking you to answer questions. You know, there's a lot of other things that is necessary. You know,
actually, there is an article on our website, calligraphymasters.com. I wrote it, but Paul helped me, because you know my English is not as perfect as his, and also I'm much more
aggressive,
more aggressive, or like kind of rude sometimes. it's just who I am. I know it's me, and but Paul helps me to make my like idea and text more. How do you say it?
Structured.
more structure, so people can get it without being offended.
So you know, by all means, go to the website, look at the article that we've put up. We've broken down the things that Calligraphy Masters needs volunteers for into different categories. We're not asking you to be a digital media guru to manage some of it. We're just asking for a little bit of help, you know. And it could be that you might have 10 minutes every couple of days that you can just sort of add. And it all adds up. So the volunteers are really important, but most importantly, you know, you will get access to things that you wouldn't normally get access to if you're not a volunteer. Obviously, you'll be working with some of the team, like myself, on some of the projects, because some of the projects are based around individual team members and different things that they do. And of course, you know, some of the things that Milen's looking at are, you know, setting up classes via Calligraphy Masters. So, you know, you will be involved in all of that. You'll have access to material, which will help you with your craft.
And also, maybe like all the information is written in the article, but I also want to say it here in the podcast. I'm looking for volunteers that can help as much as they can. As Paul said, we don't want you to do it all time, but if you're good in something and if you can spare some time, this will be welcome. Paul was trying to convince me that we need volunteers. I was like, no, I cannot ask people for their time without paying them. And he convinced me, but I still want to say it. Like, I know everybody is busy in one or another way, but there might be people who are not that busy and who are able to.
And also, you know, it mightn't be you. It might be somebody you know who can help. And that would be great. I mean, you know, and equally, you know, just if people calling, and equally, you know, if you can't, equally, if I have to make sure, because, you know, Tamo always tells me off, get the cursor off the screen. I'm like, okay. But the mouse moves on its own sometimes. And equally, if I forgot what I was going to say, if you know somebody who can help, you know, just let us know. If you want some more information, by all means, feel free to ask. You know, don't just think that we can guess. send us a message, or send Milen a message, or send me a message. Send Milen a message at Calligraphy Masters, not at MILEN1ST. Send Calligraphy Masters a message, and we'll get back to you.
Oh,
okay.
I was thinking something. Yeah, this is just a bit off topic, but I want to. Oh, I was thinking today. We made the article about how to get featured, and we explain all the stuff about respecting people, like don't do this and this. And some people who wrote me, I sent them this article. They were like, okay, we will read it. And today, one of the dudes, he sends me again his stuff, and I'm like, I'm checking. Yes, I sent him the article, and I'm like, guys, like, stop being disrespectful, people, please. If you're if you're an artist, please respect other artists.
So there's a section in the article which talks about if you want to get featured, this is what you do. And by all means, article, actually. By all means, read the section, read it over, print it off, and highlight what we've said, and then think it through. Because, don't forget, it also takes time for us to read through stuff like this. And this would be great to have volunteers who actually do that side of it. But of course, Milen has to read it in the end.
Also, something that I want to mention before we finish, because we have 1-2 minutes left of this part of the show. About volunteers, I want to let you know that if you become a volunteer, first, for me, it means a lot that you help. And something that is small for me, but I think it's cool for you guys, is each person that becomes a volunteer will be in a section on the website where there is a section about Calligraphy Masters. There is the crew, and beneath the crew, there will be all the volunteers who are helping Calligraphy Masters. This is something small from me that I give in return as a thank you. And yeah. So if you want to be a volunteer,
you might even get your work featured.
Yes, with the time. I mean, the point is Calligraphy Masters to grow, to become more professional and more useful to people. And yeah, if you want to help, if you can help, info@calligraphymasters.com, or go to calligraphymasters.com, read the article, contact me, or send to people that you think that can be willing to help us. We are finished with this part. I want to give 1-2 minutes to Paul to promote his stuff, because I know he has some upcoming classes. And before we jump into the last part of the Nibs podcast episode for today, I want him to promote whatever he has upcoming.
Well, we have quite a lot of stuff happening. We have some classes which are, we have classes up until July, and then after July we're taking a 2-month break. All of the classes that we've done, they live on Teachable, and I did a live on Instagram 2 days ago on Wednesday with 3 students who took the copperplate class, and I was almost in tears, because they were talking about their experience and how much it has changed their writing. So, if you're interested in formal script work, by all means, pick up some of the classes on Teachable. We have some amazing products. I'm so excited. So this is, we have 100 of these made. So this is a lining template. So we're going to do a video next week. And so it has a,
is it a limited edition?
No. We did the first 100, and we're going to launch the pre-order page soon. But these are cuts here, and you just put it on a page and you rule up really quickly, and then you have lines, right?
Something that I don't want to do. No, guys, this is super cool. This saves you a lot of time. And actually, are you not gonna send me one?
We will send you one once we start the promotion. And because of the angles on the edge, it helps you to make angled lines, so you can go to town with the angles. So that's that pre-order page will be up soon. And I have one other thing happening. We're launching our new website soon, and with that we're going to give away a free exemplar on an entirely new system that I've come up with to learn how to write copperplate script. So
Can I be the winner?
Can you be the winner? You'll win something, don't worry.
I'm just kidding.
But the giveaways, it's, you know, all you have to do is sign up for the newsletter and you'll get the link to download it. But it's a new system that I've augmented my fourfold symmetry from all the students that I've been teaching copperplate script. I've come up with this new exemplar, which I think will really make a difference in people learning the script a little bit easier. Right.
Awesome. So your time is up.
Thank
no
you.
more promotion. Okay, we jump into the last segment. We're gonna talk about
Tools.
Paul, are tools considered only pens or also inks and
So
papers?
I generally refer to these things as tools and materials.
Okay.
Because they tend to work together, you know. I always say to students, you know how lots of you go, which nib is that? Okay, that's a stupid question. And I'm sorry, but it is a stupid question. And you know why? Because that nib will not work with every ink on every paper. So you have to always know what the nib, the ink, and the paper is. Because if you choose a piece of paper that an ink will not work on with that particular nib, it's a waste of time. Not only is it a waste of time, it's a waste of money. And that's...
Well, wait, this is the first time I think that not every ink is supposed to work with every nib.
And not even that. Not every nib will work with every ink. Because some inks are thinner, so they slide off the nib really quickly. Now, some papers will work with a broad edge nib and ink, but it will not work with a pointed nib and that ink. Because when you write with a pointed nib and you press, the tine's open. So if this is the sharpness of the tine, when you press, you double the sharpness. If the paper scores easily, the ink will drop through the score and bleed out underneath it. So a paper might work with a specific type of paper, might work with a certain type of ink and a broad edge nib, but it will not do it with a pointed nib. So understanding your tools is really important. You know, one of the things I am absolutely adamant about with people is, you know, when I asked my mother to buy me nibs, she turned to me and she said, so I was 9. She turned to me and she said, they're too expensive. I can't afford them. And I was like, okay. And from that, I started to think, you know, whenever I talk about tools and materials, I'm always aware, I'm always conscious of, I don't want you to waste your money. So Milen's playing with a tool in his hand there. It's a really beautiful ruling pen. So this ruling pen is designed by Brody Neuenschwander, and it is an excellent tool.
How do you pronounce the name?
We'll talk about it later. So this ruling pen is an excellent tool. But if you have no letter forms, if you don't understand letter forms, getting this tool, which is it's a great tool, it's not cheap. Getting this tool is a waste of money, because you will never be able to use it unless you've had the practice with it. If you get the tool and you get the wrong ink and the wrong paper, you're not going to get the right experience from it. So, you know, I always tell my students, whenever you're starting off, the pencil is your best friend. Because the pencil will work on any sheet of paper, right? And there's no ink, there's no dipping, there's none of that madness. Anything you might...
You got me so confused, Paul. I'm so confused right now.
It's like, you know, okay, so where's my manual? I don't have my manual handy. Okay, so
I think nobody's talking about stuff like this,
you have a copy of my manual, right? On one of the pages...
Yes. Wait, just a sec.
On one of the pages in the manual, I think it's pretty early on. On page 11, on page 11, there is that, right?
Where can people get the manual?
It depends on where you are. You can, you know, do a search online because it's too expensive here in the if you're shipping it from the US. On page 11, I decided I'd never seen this done before. So on page 11, it says which paper works with which nib and which ink. Yeah. Oh,
I can make a whole video out of this.
So I I have a section on tools and materials, and in the tools section, I've done stuff that I struggled trying to get students to understand this. So these are pen stubs. These are not pens. You know, this is a pen. This is a pen staff. And where are you holding the pen staff? So, you know, the tool has parts. So at the front here is the foot, just where the head is. And then you have the body, and then you have the tail. So that starts to tell you, oh, if you're talking to someone, you can say, oh, you know, where are you holding the tool? Oh, I'm holding it in the body, because I hold my tool in the body. I don't hold it at the foot. That completely changes the way you interact with the tool. Now, if you have a flange, which is, you know, an oblique holder has a flange in it, what is the flange doing? What is the angle of the flange? There is one video I will point you to. I'll share it with Milen. It's a video that we have on Teachable. It's a free video, and it's called the PAScribe Tool Coordinate System. Because
look what I found. A dead book inside.
Over where I wrote your name. Over where I wrote the greeting.
Yes. Like what?
Something
did you get
sacrificed its life for that manual and to get that manual to you. So,
but you know, I have to admit, I never read actually the manual.
Well, wait a little bit, because in a couple months we'll have a video for every section.
Hey.
So going back to the tools, right? So it's not just about your ink, your nib, and your ink, your nib, and your paper. It's also about your hold. So I decided, you know, this is a big problem, and I got into a little bit of trouble with my team because they were like, you shouldn't be sharing this for free. And I'm like, I understand that, but it's something that I think a lot of people need to understand. So, you know, if you love Stargate, I'm a big Stargate fan. So I thought, right, that's the nib there, right? That's the point of origin. So the tool can move vertically back or forward. That's your vertical pitch. The tool can also move, oh, it really hurts because it's pointed. The tool can also move side to side. So that's your horizontal tilt. But look at the reservoir. The reservoir is at the front, right? The tool can also rotate. So that's your axial roll. When I hold the tool, I hold it at a 75-degree vertical tilt with a 15 to 20 degree horizontal vertical pitch, with a 15 to 20 degree horizontal tilt, with a 5 to 7 degree axial roll. And what that does is
that sounds like physics, like a quantum physics.
It tells you exactly where the tool is to do what you need it to do.
But even though you said all these angles, I cannot even imagine it right now. I'm just thinking.
Watch the video. When you watch the video, because there's a video overhead, so you see what it is, and there's a video from the side, so you see how it moves. It's on the PAScribe Teachable site. And,
okay,
and it's free.
Okay.
But awesome. So it's not just about what tools work in combination. It's also to do with your hold. So, you know, my hold is very, very light. Milen's hold is, you can't take Milen's hand off the page. And Milen is like, I'm on the page. And that affects the way in which the tool works, because there's a lot of friction. If there's less friction, there's the ability to produce a smoother movement. So, you know, this section that we have on tools it's going to be extended over quite a lot of things. You know, we'll include paper, we'll include nibs, different types of nibs, pointed and broad edge. We'll talk about things like, you know, parallel pens, maybe not gold ones, because, you know, not everybody can have a gold parallel pen, right? And we'll talk about inks, because ink is a big topic.
Yeah, I think also. I think ink is
so, you know, but like I said, herb and ink. Is that the one with the Is that the red with the silver sparkles or the gold mica in it?
It's Rouge Chemita. I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah, but it's the red with goldish and greenish.
Very nice iridescent ink.
But it's cool. Just the bottle itself.
And it's not just the bottle; it's the wax on the top that's lovely.
The whole thing is experience. It's not just.
Yeah, but you have to.
I'm happy.
You have to break the wax open to get to the ink.
Wow, it's super cool. I think more people should do products like this, not just boring.
There's some great ink products, and I started looking at inks outside of the West, and Japan produces some amazing inks.
Do you know at least 15 or 20 different brands of ink?
Of course.
No, then we should make a video, top 15, 20.
Do you not remember when you came here, how this whole shelf is ink?
I remember, but it could be just 5 or 6 brands. I don't know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. There's about 45, and that's not even on the testing table. So there's some new inks that have arrived. So anyway, with your tools, remember, simplest is best. Start with a pencil.
We have 2 minutes left so let's say something that's cool or important about tools. Okay, something that, I don't know, what's the most annoying question that you get about tools? For me, I think one of the most annoying questions is, what is the pen? What is the tool?
Well, it's like I said,
I think people believe that the pen is gonna make the writing and.
But the most important thing you can remember is, it's not just about one aspect. Those 3 things must work together. If they don't work together, it's pointless.
Yes, even though it's a point.
So thanks very much, guys.
Okay.
Paul Antonio here.
Thank you for listening or watching this episode, guys. I don't know where, maybe you're just listener, maybe you'll watch it. If you watch, please subscribe to our brand new channel of Nibs Podcast. If you listen on any of the platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever, follow or subscribe, because I don't know, each platform has a different term for
joining.
Just if you enjoy the podcast, if you want more and better, more interesting and informative podcasts from Nibs Podcast, subscribe, follow, share with friends, send to everybody, to your mother, to your brother.
And by all means, let us know if there's something that you'd like us to cover, something specifically that you'd like us to cover.
Yes, this is super important, guys. If there is an option to comment, depending where you receive this content, if you can comment below topics that you want us to discuss as well, because in 2-3 episodes, we'll start the 3rd part of this podcast will be topics.
So you can follow the Nibs podcast on Instagram and leave posts there, or leave them on the Nibs podcast on YouTube. Thanks very much.
Yes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And as always, keep writing.